South Dakota and driving to Minnesota, and we'll be there for a while.
10 hours. Oh.
We'll be in Minnesota for a couple of years, but yeah, our car ride's 10 hours. So I thought we would do a question and answer video with you. It's really bright outside, so we're both going to wear our sunglasses for a little bit. He's probably going to wear them the whole time. But yeah, so I thought I would show you how I'm kind of moving my succulents and, you know, talk about the questions that you guys have asked us in the comments and also on Instagram, and then maybe just do like a brief cap of our wedding. So we own a 2-door Chevy Cobalt, which means
It's small.
say again.
It's small.
So we have tried to pack everything in there that we can. Oh, sorry, my finger. And as you can see, succulents are spread out throughout the car. So really there's no method to the madness other than keep everything upright, and hopefully nothing will shift and fall on the succulents. There is a shelf down here that had some holes in it that we shoved succulents into. And in that back far window, maybe I'll be able to get a shot of it later, is a bunch more succulents, and that's where we've been putting them. We'll start out with a couple wedding questions maybe. So we were asked what our favorite part of the wedding was, and that's a good question.
There's a lot of favorite parts.
We rode off on a tandem bike, and that was actually really fun.
That was pretty cool.
For me, we didn't crash. I thought we were gonna crash. My train on my dress was so long, and so we bustled it up while we were waiting and like hugging people, and then I definitely thought we were gonna get caught in the bike. But otherwise, one of my favorite like preparing parts about the wedding was that we ordered all of our own flowers. We ordered them from Safeway, actually, and then, you know, I grew succulents throughout these last couple of years, and then we made our own wedding bouquets, and each bridesmaid was in charge of their own bouquet. You know, even my 9-year-old little sister pretty much made her own bouquet with like a help of like my maid of honor or something. But so we made all of our own bouquets, and then we made all the boutonnieres and corsages for our parents and family. So that was kind of, I don't know, fun, because each bouquet had the bridesmaid's own personality kind of come through it a little bit, and they were all different, but they had the same material, so they were still similar. So that was kind of one of my favorite, I don't know, that made it special, I think.
Yeah, my boutonniere that just made me had ogre ears and mother of thousands on it, because those are the best 2 succulents in the world, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I personally like echeverias, but Jacob likes ogre ears, or like the crassula, gollum, something or other, and mother of thousands. So I had to include those in the boutonniere for him as well.
It looked good. It looked good.
But I also put an echeveria in there.
Yes. So my favorite part of the wedding was probably the dances. Like, we were throwing it down on the dance floor at the end. Like, Cascada, every time we touched, that was a party.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite part.
There was a lot of people dancing. That was fun.
Yeah, all of our friends and family were out there. It was sweet.
Alright, so Lucky Gracie asked if I was nervous at all as the wedding day was approaching. And I wouldn't say I was too nervous. I think I was kind of more ready for it to be done, because it's been just such a long wait. But were you nervous?
I was, so like I don't really get nervous for things right away, but then like right before they happen. So like I had my mom on one side and my dad on the other side, and I was like, oh my god, it's happening. That's when I got nervous.
But we also did a first look, like, you know, beforehand, so we could do all of our photos between us and all of our wedding party, and I think that helped a lot too. Like, I feel like being able to see each other before the actual ceremony like took away a lot of our nerves for the ceremony, but I wasn't stressed out until when we were making the bouquets. I was like trying to rearrange one of the succulents, and for like this, I was never really stressed out like the whole wedding planning period until the day before our wedding, when I dropped one of the succulents and it hit the ground and just shattered everywhere. Like all of its leaves popped off, and I think that made me a little stressed. But otherwise it was fine, because it made me nervous that the succulents were going to be an issue, I guess, but they weren't. They all lasted really well. And Lucky Gracie also asked how long the succulents would last in the bouquet. So we made them on Friday, or let me think. So on a Wednesday is when I cut off the succulents from their roots and like wrapped them up, and I'll include a link down to that video below. But like I prepared the succulents for the bouquets on a Wednesday, and then on a Friday we arranged them with the flowers and the eucalyptus and leather leaf, and then our wedding was on a Saturday, and then we went on a honeymoon to Colorado Springs, and then I want to say on that next Friday is when I finally took apart the wedding bouquets and kind of made it, I don't know. I haven't planted them back up yet. So it's a succulent cutting essentially. So they'll last a while. The only thing is, after like a couple of days, the leaves start to get a little wrinkly because they're gonna try to start growing roots and like keep growing, but they don't have any water supply. So I think that's just something to keep account of. And I'll show you all of the wedding succulents in the back when we're unpacking, maybe. I don't know if I'll be able to get a good shot of them while we're driving, but I pretty much just threw them all in cups and in a container and brought them with. I have not planted them back up. They haven't grown roots yet, but I mean, they'll last a while. It just kind of depends on the look you're going for, which wrinkly isn't the look I was going for. So yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about propagation. There's a couple of propagation questions I've been getting, so I just wanted to go over those a little bit with you guys too. So just to start out, I will not be doing a 4-month propagation update video because unfortunately I neglected a lot of my succulents, and a lot of my nice big succulents were just fine without as much water under my grow lights, but the babies did not do as hot because I got married, so life happens and sometimes you just can't keep up with it all. So a lot of my succulents either got mealybugs or died because they weren't watered, or whatever, and I still have a lot of them in there, or I moved them to a different container. And so really my propagation tray just isn't anything, I guess, that I'm proud of. I usually don't keep them in there. I usually rotate them out, so once they get to a certain size, I take them and move them somewhere else. So I won't be doing one of those for you guys just because there's really nothing to see. But otherwise, I had a couple other questions. One of them was if I missed the leaves in propagation, and it's kind of more of a yes and no answer, yes and no, because an easy way to water your succulents is through misting. But I use my garden syringe. If you guys have seen any of my videos, you know that I love my garden syringe. And I use that, and I just like douse the whole tray with my garden syringe, because I find that actually lets the water stay. I find that when I use a mister, it isn't, it dries out within a couple hours, and so I have to water multiple times a day. And I haven't had an issue with my garden syringe with it watering that much all at once. And so that's what I use. However, I don't like getting water on the leaves, but when you're propagating, it's almost difficult not to get any water on the leaves. And so once rosettes kind of form is when I start to make sure that I'm targeting only the roots. If that makes sense, I hope that helps. So I was also asked when you should water offsets, like from a grown succulent, like when you cut off the babies. So once I cut off an offset, I let it sit there for 2 to 3 days. You want it to callus over, and you'll be able to tell when it calluses. The end kind of turns white and hard, and water won't be coming out of it. Like a fresh cutting definitely has like a wet feeling if you touch the end of it, and so you'll be able to tell when it's calloused over. But then I put that in soil, and you can start watering it like normal succulent waters. So or how you would water a normal succulent, which, as kind of a reminder, that is as often as your soil gets dry, essentially. So for me personally, I have my succulents under grow lights, which you should go check out our grow light video for more information on that. But I have them under there for majority of the day, and so if I had kept my watering routine normal, it would be about once a week for all of them, just because of how close they are to the grow light, which was also another question, which I keep. I try to keep them about 8 inches from the grow lights. If you get closer, it's fine. The only problem is then, you could burn them. And I know all the succulents are different heights, so I just try to keep a general range. For propagating, though, I do keep them a little bit farther, just because they are more sensitive and they're going to be trying to grow their roots out in the air, and you don't want those roots to get dried out too badly. They just do better, with less light in general. But then you have to be quick and move them to somewhere with more light once they form their rosettes or their leaves, just because they'll start to stretch really quickly. And that's kind of why I can't do the propagation update either, because a lot of them grew and then I moved them because they were stretching. So, but yeah, in the comment she said that her offsets were growing roots, and that's great. You can start watering them even without roots too. It really doesn't matter. They'll start forming them within hopefully a week or two, and you should be fine to just water them as normal then. We did not include succulent favors. Part of that was me being, I guess, selfish with my succulents. I grew all the succulents we used, and I didn't want to give away 350 some succulents because that's how big our wedding was. But also just, that was a whole nother piece of work we didn't want to
Yeah,
do.
and it's like hard to trust friends and family that definitely have no idea how to take care of a succulent with something that you babied up.
My heart would have hurt to see all my propagated babies go to homes that were just doomed to die.
Yeah.
Not that I don't have any faith in my friends and family, but still. My heart hurts a little bit when I see somebody go, look how big my succulent grew, and it's etoliated or stretched out or whatever because it's lack of sun, and I just die a little bit inside. But so that was another part of it. Otherwise, we were asked what our wedding colors were. So we didn't, I don't know how to explain the wedding colors. Neutral. The guys wore light gray suits, brown shoes, and then they had kind of this silver white tie. And then the bridesmaids had this dress that could go really any direction. It was like a pink, gray taupe. Is taupe a color? It was a very light nudie color that they wore. And then our bouquets had the silver leaf eucalyptus, the leather leaf, which looks like ferns essentially, and then white roses and some succulents, which were like the Echeveria lilacina is what all the bridesmaids had, and then all the boys' boutonnieres had like a little propagated lilacina on them. And then my bouquet had Echeveria allegra and a Lola in it. I think it had 2 allegras and one Lola. And the one that shattered on the floor was going to be my lilacina, but it ended up working fine. I think 3 was kind of a good number for it. But otherwise, we like tied a bunch of leather leaf to like the chairs, and for the reception we had long tables, and we just kept it really simple. We have a lot of Russian olive trees that grew in my parents' yard, and so our dads went out the morning of the wedding and just cut off a lot of like shoots that were coming out of the trunk, I guess, of the tree, and a lot of branches, and then we just laid those on the table. And yeah, so a lot of greenery, just very natural. We tried to keep it really simple. Somebody asked me specifically about a zebra hiawatha that they have that was really tall and close together, and then now it's spreading out, and they asked if that was normal, and I would probably have to see a picture of it, but I definitely think that's fine. I have a couple of zebra hiawathas, or wathas, I don't know what it is, myself, but in my experience with a lot of succulents, if they do have a lot of light, they'll be, you know, like close and tight together, and then with a little bit of less light, they'll start to open up a little bit. So that could be just part of it. Maybe it's getting less light than it's used to, but it's also kind of one of those preference things. Like, as long as it's not stretching out, it's probably getting enough light. It just might not be getting too much light. So if it's closed up together, it might just be getting more light than it wants. All right, so this is my trunk of my car. Loaded up the dough bowl in here. Here's my timer, extension cord, some pots, some random succulents I put in there. Put this plant in the vase. He's a little tall, but he'll work. Ooh, that sun got it. And some more random ones, but so far so good. Got a lot of stuff packed in here, so doing well. Got a frisbee full of succulents. This is the container that I was telling you has all my wedding succulents in it. You can see some of the leaves, some of the leucinias, the ogre ears, kind of. Focus is bad, but a couple trays. Just put them back in here. So they're doing all right. Surviving.